Coach V Show.
Welcome to the Coach V Show, your show for personal development with expert insights and interviews to help you, me, and we work to be our best and live our best life. Powered by Island City here on the Coach V Show, where iron sharpens iron. Together we rise. I am juiced to have a champion on the show today. Someone who I watch grow and develop, and even more so following his career as an executive. I've just become an even further fan and bigger fan. And I wanted to have him bring his life lessons, the behavioral models, and also his success principles to you, the listening audience of the Coach V Show. Mr. Jared Zabransky is on the show this evening. His parents are Steve and Tana Zabransky in Hermiston, Oregon. Shout out H-Town, Oregon. Father of two to Savannah Zabransky and Rowan Zabransky. Engaged to the Vanessa Ferguson, three-time bowl MVP, team captain of the 07 Fiesta Bowl champions at the Boise State University. 2008, I mean, how many people get an opportunity to be on a cover of a video game? 2008 EA Sports college football cover athlete, and then two-time ESPY award recipient in 2007 with the Boise State Broncos for the best game and also the best play of that season. 33-5 as a collegiate starter. Let me say that again. 33-5 in Division I football is absolutely unheard of. Professional football career after being drafted, signing as a free agent with the Houston Texans, practice roster in 2007, was on the roster with the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2008, and the Edmonton Eskimos from 09 to 11, where he has a 2-0 record as a starter. Avid pursuer of excellence. He loves to coach and teach athletics, especially to youth and his own two children. He loves to travel and been fortunate to visit 30 countries for both business and pleasure. Z is also a keynote speaker, published writer, and he's all about helping others as part of his passion and calling. Also the founder of the Wishes Golf Tournament, which is now in year 10, all of which is grounded in his faith in Christ, his Lord and Savior. Coach V Show audience, please welcome to the show yours truly, the legend of the blue from Hermiston, Oregon, Jared Zabransky. Z!
Coach, that was quite a shout out for Hermiston, Oregon to start out there.
H-Town, man, people think H-Town is only in Texas, man. H-Town started in Hermiston, Oregon, man.
Well, at least I can say I live in H-Town still. So I'm just right outside of Houston. So I went from one H-Town
to the other H-Town, right?
To another. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Z, thank you so much for coming on the show. I know you're a busy executive, a busy father, planning a wedding and doing all that. And just the fact that you take the time to come on this show and share with us so that we can all, myself and the audience included, can work to be our best and live our best lives. Jared Zabransky, what is your genesis point and where did you start?
Well, it really started in Hermiston, like you gave a shout out to an upbringing in a rural area that was predominantly known for agriculture. My folks, my grandfather was a farmer. They homesteaded out in Oregon, built a life and a culture and a work ethic for themselves that started with my grandfather. Him and my grandmother, both deceased now, God rest their souls. And I know that they're up there with our Lord and Savior, watching down on all 137 living descendants from their patriarch, and my grandmother was a true matriarch of nearly 140 kids. I mean, it's wild to think about, but she really was the quintessential focal point for our family. mean, you get family that is, 7 children, and then those 7 children, they were LDS, right? So that kind of explains all of the children. But you get the 7, and you go multiples after that. And when you have your own family and you have the 7 children, and the first set of grandchildren, it's easy to get everybody together.
Right.
I should take that back. It's not easy, but it can be done. But when you start growing into that 3rd and 4th generation, the families start to transition into their own, Christmases and Thanksgivings. You pray and hope that everybody can get together on occasion a year, or a couple times every few years with family reunions and such. But with grandma, everybody wanted to get back to the middle of nowhere, Oregon, to see grandma.
Right.
And that, I think, spoke volumes to what she instilled in her family, and the closeness and the importance of the family unit was something that is extremely ingrained in the fabric of who I am. So, man, I still say that with a little bit of a heavy heart, So that is extremely important. That's the genesis. That's grandma, grandpa, and then obviously growing up in that area, the stuff that my grandfather and father did as far as like the farming. You got to get up early, man. Like you're on a grind for, pretty much 4 months a year. It's sunrise to sunset, and, the hour before on either side for 3 months of harvest. And then you're preparing, for that harvest for the rest of the year, working on your equipment. So I seen 2 guys, my grandfather, my father, and then everybody in the family had to work, right? You supported the farm. So, that work ethic was instilled and ingrained at a really young age, which allowed me to understand that things are obtainable, and you can accomplish so many things through a work ethic that you couldn't do otherwise. I mean, hard work outworks talent any day of the week. I mean, you see it time and time again. Talent that doesn't work, hard work, outworks that, and it's tried and true. You see it in athletics. You see it in the corporate world. You see it in day-to-day business. If someone, and I really appreciated a post that you had your testament to your father on LinkedIn here recently, just what that does, not only for yourself and your loved ones, but how it impacts everybody around you, that you may not realize the impact that it's having at the time. But when people come back, years down the road, and they say, man, I really appreciated, how hard you worked, or the effort that you went to, and the lengths that you were willing to, go to achieve the business, to win the game, to teach my son how to take a drop or what have you. So that was started in Hermiston, Oregon, man, and on the farm, and just got to carry with me through life. So that, right. I guess that's the genesis.
So that's the genesis point, from grandparents to almost 140, 137, 140 that have come from that lineage, and then that anything can be accomplished. right? So what was that for you in terms of, I mean, Hermiston, Oregon farmer became this exceptional athlete, Division I player, one of the all-time winningest college quarterbacks in the history of college football, just not in a conference or for a school, in the history of college football. How did that work out? Did you play sports? And talk to us about what you had to do, like do your chores, go to school, and go to sports? How did that work out?
Yeah, fortunate for me, I was kind of a mistake. I was 8 years after my closest sibling.
Right.
So my family, my parents kind of had their first four within like 5 years, and then I came 8 years later. So I was kind of like 8 years later, yeah. So I was kind of like an only, Coach Fee, and so my mom really took to me and kind of coddled me at a young age. My siblings joke, we lived in an old farmhouse that had a basement, that they didn't see me very much for like the first couple of years because mom was down there taking care of me, and that kind of just stuck. Like I was a mama's boy, and she made sure that I was doing everything that I wanted to do. I didn't go without a want, and that's in regards to the athletic side. I wanted to be an athlete. I remember watching Notre Dame football games at the age of about 4. We had 3 channels, and one of the channels was channel 42, which was NBC, and Notre Dame football was on every Saturday.
Every Saturday on NBC,
yeah. And I just got, from an early age, and all my cousins and siblings, they all played sports. So I was constant. I have 33 first cousins, and out of our first cousin group that was on my dad's side, there were 9 of us that played collegiate athletics.
Wow.
5 of us that played Division I football. 6 of us, that played Division I football. You're familiar with the Tanas, so that was, so that the Pat and Etienne married 2 of my dad's sisters. So there's 10 kids in those 2 families, 4 boys in one, and then 4 girls in the other. And all 4 of those boys played Division I football. So we would get family gatherings, and it would just be, I was quite a bit younger, so they would play and I would kind of watch, and then I'd go, and try to compete with them. And I was always wanting to be the best. And I had just a constant visual aid to like people competing. Because my family was constantly competing against each other, whether that was playing a pickup game of football or playing on grandpa's card table. It was you're trying to win constantly. So that competition aspect was established and ingrained at a very early age. And then I always wanted to have some sort of ball in my hand, whether it was a basketball, a baseball, a golf club, hitting a golf ball, or a football. Football's a little bit tougher to play by yourself, but I found myself out in my yard, kind of throwing the football to myself and visualizing, scoring the big play and running up and down the field. And, the stuff that we do now and that I coach these young kids on, the proper technique and form and cutting off your outside foot, and being able to accelerate and decelerate. I was out there just moving around and doing those things, building that muscle memory, not knowing what I was doing, but I just loved ball. I'd watch a football game and go out in the fall or winter and throw the football to myself and juke the air and, throw the ball and run and dive and catch it. Constantly just building those memory receptors in my bioskeletal system, and just constantly doing something, Coach Fee, whether that was shooting a basketball, playing one-on-one or one-on-none, working always to try to be the best. And then like I said, my mom always made sure I was in, baseball, basketball, football, whatever the season was, I was signed up. I always had the equipment that I needed. And then I just wanted to be the best, man. And that's kind of if it was my best friend and I'd take him out to play one-on-one, I wouldn't take it easy on him. And, you know, we compete against each other. The guys that I ran with, my friends in high school, are still friends to today and to this day. And, you know, three of my best friends were the three of the other four starters on the basketball team. And, you know, we'd go find a gym and play. Or we'd go, you know, toss the baseball and play home run derby. That was just, there was nothing else to do in H-Town, man. I mean, still not a whole lot more to do there, but
right. It's still the same,
you know,
right?
Yeah. So it was ball or nothing really. And, you know, as you start to progress, you start to see, and I knew I was pretty good. I mean, I didn't know outside of kind of my area, but then you start playing teams outside of the area. And our baseball team in Little League in Babe Ruth, we had a good team. We took second in the state in Babe Ruth 13-year-olds and 15.
Wow.
A Beaverton team. Our baseball teams were solid. Our AAU basketball teams were okay, not great. So we'd have to go down and play the Portland schools and get beat up pretty good. But high school was all conference in all three. I was all-state shortstop and an all-state point guard. I didn't get any state honors in football, but I played well. We had a kid who was a senior in Redmond that threw for like 4,500 yards. He ended up getting all-conference player of the year, and that was he's a pretty decent player. But I wanted to be the best, man, and that's what it was. And I knew I had some talent. I had some God-given talent. My cousins played. I had some talent from my grandma and grandpa's side, but then my mother's father, Frank Munkus, grew up in the south side of Chicago, got a full ride to the University of Washington to play running back. He went to a school called Tyler Jester on the south side. And that's what brought that side of the family, who was Lithuanian, out to the West Coast. And so he was a good football player, big guy. So I had some God-given, and my genes were, I guess, were set to, but the work ethic that my grandparents and my parents instilled in me, that's what propelled me to the level that I was able to get to. And I guess I was talking to Vanessa about this the other day, and somebody else, some friends of ours. And one of the greatest compliments I've ever received was from both Coach Pete and Coach Harson. And they had mentioned something to the likes of, I was the hardest working quarterback that they had ever been around. And that outside of the accolades, I mean, beyond those, hearing and being given that compliment is not only humbling, but I feel great pride in that compliment.
Wow. And when is it that you recognize, because it's interesting as coaching and as parents, I'm around other parents who are like, well, you know what, they just don't know. I'm like, no, kids know who the leader is and who's the best and who isn't. I don't fake the funk on that. I just talk about, hey, this is what you need to do to get better. Hey, focus on this, like one thing with the little kids, right? Because I know nothing about freaking baseball, right? And then 4 years ago, my son was like, I want to play T-ball. I don't watch baseball. I never played baseball, but my son wanted to play. So I'm like, okay, cool, right? So then they asked me if I'd coach, not knowing who I was from anything in my past. But I'm like, yeah, I mean, I could teach a 5-year-old how to work hard, right? But I mean, kids know who's good and who isn't. So I just keep it real. When did you know that you've started to separate yourself and start to become that leader? Let's stay in that Little League Babe Ruth time all the way up to high school. When did you know?
Yeah. Right around third grade in baseball, you get to try out for the majors, and that's third through sixth grade. And I think I was the first third grader selected, someone told me. And then
to the majors?
First game, my
son right now is in AAA. I don't think he could play in the majors, right? He's 9 years old, and you made it in the majors. That's big time.
made it to the majors. And then our first game, Justin Simmons was the pitcher, and he was like the best pitcher in the league. Just could throw gas at that age. I don't know what it would be now, but he was like in the 60s as a little leaguer, and 60s, low mid 60s, and he threw one 4-seamer right down the middle of the plate, and I one-hopped the fence my first at bat, and I tried to stretch a double into a triple, got into a pickle, and they got me out. But at that time, that the lights were kind of on for me. At that time, I was wanting to compete against, kids that were at least a year or 2 years above me in the area, because I was better than the rest of the kids that were in my grade.
Right.
Fourth grade basketball was the first year that we could play basketball, and there wasn't a kid that could stop me, and it just I was advanced. So from then on, it was every year, unless we played it. I remember one time during summer league, we were playing Wilson High School, and Chris Rogers was a 2-guard. I played point guard or 2. Chris Rogers was a 4-year starter at the University of Arizona for Lou Holtz, and he was the first guy that I ever played basketball against. And I was going into my junior year, I think, and I just couldn't guard him. It was the only time I'd ever played anybody in basketball that I was like, this guy's better than me.
Right.
Now, and then beyond that, I never played against Chris again in high school. And there wasn't a guy that I played that I was like, oh, this guy's better than me. So that at probably, I'd say 9 or 10 years old, in every sport, I felt like I was until, and this happens for everybody, and you could attest to this, Coach B, until you land on campus your freshman year.
Right.
Then you go, oh, geez, everybody's pretty good. And then you're the kid, and you got full-grown men that have been in, college programs for 3 or 4 years at that time. So,
yeah, and then so I often talk to my clients initially when I first start with them about, yes, you need to work hard, and so that way you can more effectively and efficiently pursue what it is that you want to achieve and or succeed in. But then you become what it is that you want, and then now you start attracting what it is that you want to you, right, Z? So now you became an elite player. How did you attract notoriety and opportunity to becoming and getting an opportunity to play for Boise State University? How did that work?
Well, it was a lot of the summer programs that we were in. That was really the time that I was able to capture some visibility on the state and Northwest kind of sort of scale. When you play interleague, unless you make it, to the tournament in basketball or deep in the playoffs in football, which we didn't really have success in until my senior year, it's really tough. It's not like it is now with the Huddle and YouTube and Huddle and all these accessible platforms that coaches can go on. I mean, if you remember, we would get a letter in the mail, and you'd have to write down basically your size, your weight,
your questionnaire. Yeah.
And everybody lies on it, right? I think I was, I don't know, I think I listed, I was 6'4", which was like over an inch taller than I was, and I was probably 10 pounds heavier than I really was.
Right.
And you try to turn somebody's head, and that's until I got to those summer programs where we were able to go and compete against other schools with a little bit more attraction in those tournaments or those camps from collegiate coaches. That's where that really happened. And really for Boise State, my junior year, I think I was first team all conference in all 3 and got like player of the year for the area. So there was a little bit of notoriety following me into the Boise State football camp. And I had a American Legion tournament that I was like a day late to the camp. And when I got there, like the first day there, Coach Pete walked right up to me as I was throwing. So they must have known I was coming.
Right.
But I don't know to what extent, right? Because I didn't feel like Hermiston was really on the radar.
Right.
As a hotbed to recruit high school football players. But really that camp, and I think I was the MVP of the camp. And that's when like Coach Hawk and Coach Pete really started to realize that, you know, potentially this kid could come play for us.
Right.
It was really kind of in those summer camps. Yeah.
And then now you get an opportunity, you come to campus, and then I think that's when I came on as a grad assistant at Boise State. And then, like you said, you get to campus, you're like, wow, these guys are pretty good. And I live in Elk Grove, California now, where Ryan Dinwiddie is a legend here, right?
Yeah.
So you get there and RD is the man. I mean, the dude plays hard, parties hard, goes to school, and comes out and rocks, right? I mean, everybody knows. I mean, RD is just a gamer like that.
Yeah.
How did that feel like, and what was the life lesson to now face maybe the toughest competition you've ever faced? How did that feel like?
Well, I haven't shared this story with too many people outside of close friends that are aware of it, but about week 3 of camp, I almost quit.
Right.
I'm standing in the walkway, right where like Dale's office is, the old locker room where Dale had his, you know, the window, and I'm standing right there, and just like kind of bummed. Things weren't like quite going how I thought they would go, and Billy Wingfield and I had a conversation.
Right.
It was a conversation I'll never forget. And in essence, Billy said, Jared, you know, everybody, you're probably shocked that, you know, there's this many good players that you're battling with. Everybody here's good.
Yeah.
But you need to know that the coaches like you, that we all see potential in you, and that you have a legitimate opportunity to be the quarterback here and to be the quarterback. And hearing that from him, who was one of our star players.
Yeah. Major star. Yeah.
Who I respected and really liked Billy as an individual, and you know, was a fan. I mean, he impressed us, you know, weekly with, you know, stuff he would do on the field, and you know, the guy was a worker. And hearing that from him gave me that little extra glimpse of hope that I needed, that, hey, might not be as bad as I think it is. You know, that self-doubt or that, you know, affliction that a person goes through that gets them, you know, leaning towards, hey, this might not be for me, which would have been the first time I had quit any sport.
Right.
And it was a God thing. Billy was there. There was no one else there. So that was about 3 weeks into redshirt year. And as you know, we go down to Arkansas, and RD breaks his foot.
Right.
And
who was the backup at that time? Was it Mike Sanford?
BJ Rohde.
Oh, BJ Rohde. That's right.
Yeah. And Mike was the number 3.
Oh my goodness. You had RD, BJ, Mike Sanford, and you. That was some QB power right there.
And Legadoo,
Nane. Yeah, oh my goodness.
And LA and I were battling kind of as the, you know, the freshman quarterback. And when RD got hurt, that bumped BJ to the starter, Mike to 2, and we traveled with 3. So that bumped me to the 3rd spot. I'd end up kind of winning the battle with Legadoo. And that was definitely another God thing, was forcing me to get in to learn the system beyond what a redshirt, you know, timeline typically looks like.
Right.
So I got, you know, a step way ahead. And even though I wasn't, you know, getting the reps with the 1s or the 2s, I would, you know, spot in with the 2s sometimes, but I was getting, you know, maybe 2 or 3 reps of practice, and then I'd go over on scout team. But I was forced to know the game plan, forced to be ready to play. And typically freshmen aren't doing that, especially quarterbacks.
Right.
They're typically going into the kind of that red shirt mode. which again prepared me earlier than kind of anticipated, and really got me ready for the next year's competition as well.
Wow. And really, I mean, Z, ever since I met you, so that must have been 02, right? Was that
Yep.
the 02? Because I came 02. In 03.
Yeah.
So I come in and meet you. I think it was you, Sanford, and
RD was the senior,
right?
Yeah.
And then LA starts shifting over to wide receiver. I mean, it's just a bunch of things. But I mean, I really have always seen you as a person that just freaking met adversity face, because I was there when we went to Georgia, right? And we got smacked up, first time ever ranked. I was there. You know, we played, did we play Matty Ice? Was it Boston College?
Boston College at home in 05.
Yeah, and then we just came up short, right? And then, so how did adversity just build you up? You in LA were probably one of the most athletic dudes on the team, and then one of you had to go to wide receiver. And I remember being in those staff meetings, but from your vantage point, that how your college career unfolded, and you were gonna quit, and then some conversation time with Billy Wingfield, another legend on the Blue. You stayed with it. You stayed in faith. RD gets hurt, and then the next thing you know, you're in the mix. Z.
Yeah.
Talk about how just facing adversity face first. After that, you're like, I'm not gonna quit. I'm just gonna go. Because ever since I met you, you would always be like the first guy on the bleachers. You'd always be vocal, but you always had that like kind of Polynesian. You and I kind of always had that kind of connection. Like, man, this guy's a good dude, right? Z's a good dude, and he wants to be a factor, right? How did going through all that adversity and being able to face adversity and deal with it?
Well, I think when I look at adversity and as building blocks, right? Is you're kind of building your legacy, and you've got to be able to persevere through those hard times. And I think that what happens often is that people find the shorter route or the easier route to avoid that. But what we were faced with, and that sometimes that's a smart answer. Sometimes there's a shorter line to get to beyond that time of adversity. And it doesn't mean that you're cheating anything or that you're not, overcoming it. You just find a different route. But we couldn't do that. Right. There's too many variables. There's too many, the tenure of other athletes, the pecking order and the depth charts, and there's just so many different things that you have to understand your place in the order. You have to understand your role on the team. And that doesn't mean that you can't be yourself and you can't be a leader or maximize your output or try to pull in others and rally others. And I think that was a big thing from an understanding perspective for me in that early phase of, hey, I don't know about this, but having somebody there that had my back, gave me those words of encouragement, the inspiration that it provided was kind of like a chink of armor that I was able to, put on the body in preparation for football games, in preparation for academics, tests and life, and dealing with any potential adversity that came forward, and understanding that, there's gonna be hard times, and understanding that there's always an answer, and the answer from to adversity is perseverance and work ethic, in my opinion. And having the fabric that was woven in me by my folks, my grandparents, understanding that I can and will outwork anything that I had done the previous day, and anybody around me gave me the confidence that I could overcome the adversities that were put in front of me.
Wow. So then you become the starter. Talk about that now. Now you're named the starter at Boise State University. What did that feel like, and what did achievement, and then now, because then now you still got to go out and perform. But before the execution and performance and getting out on the field, what did it feel like when you're meeting with your position coach and your position coach tells you you're going to be the starter? How gratifying did that feel, and what did that feel like?
Well, if you remember, it was like 2 days before the Idaho game. Sanford and I were in that battle for the starting position. And Coach Hawk wanted to be the first one to tell me, and he called me in. And it was 2 days. Like, it was Thursday. We played Saturday.
Right.
I would have liked a little bit more prep, but and understanding. But I think the beautiful thing about that process was both Mike and I were preparing to be the starter, as you should, right, as a backup, especially as a number 2, and even a 3, because 1 and 2 could go down in sequential plays. So the number 3 really has to be ready to play too. But we were ultimately preparing to be the starter, and we were both prepared. Getting that call to Hawk's office, I kind of had an idea, because the 3 scrimmages that we had, I had outperformed. I felt like I had outperformed and outgraded Mike on all of them. And then kind of doing the math, we don't typically at Boise State, if there's an even, like a dead even heat, they're probably going to give it to the younger guy who's a sophomore and has 3 years of potential of starting, like they did with RD. And we just had a long tenure of from Hildy having 4 years, then Hendricks 4 years, Art 3. And that was kind of the sales and the recruitment pitch from Hawk and Pete was, hey, we got this guy, Ryan Dinwiddie, who's a stud. He's going to be a great guy to come in and learn from. But by your sophomore year, he's gone. And you'll have a chance to be a 3-year starter just like him. And all of that was kind of coming to fruition, V. And I felt like I was the guy. And good, bad, or indifferent, I was probably overconfident at times, but I could say that I've never lacked it. And as I've gotten older, fortunately, humility has set in, and I'm very appreciative for the experiences and all the time, all the teams and the people, and the realization through life experience has led me more towards the path of humility. But you have to stay confident in yourself. So I've kind of re-engineered what that confidence means to me and what it looks like. So I felt confident that I was going to be the guy, and then I get told that, and I'm just like cloud 9, and like I'm so pumped and just really just ready to play. And that first year, if you can remember, I'm sure you do, we just were like gangbusters, man. We beat everybody pretty handily. We were on the stage with Oregon State. We played a big BYU game at home, and we were in all like these barn burners. If there wasn't a tight game, it was a blowout. Yeah, and that's right. We remember we won T. Jones hits the 47-yarder to beat Tulsa. Yeah. Then, and we're like 6-0 or 7-0 at the time. And then we've got BYU in a big ESPN game, and they missed the field goal that would have won them the game. Right. But the drive before I hit TJ on a post corner post, big bomb to put us ahead. Yeah. And then Oregon State, we just ended up blowing out at home. And I think Corey had like 2 or 3 interceptions. We just to the house. Yeah. Corey took it to the house. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was like and then we play Hawaii at home and have a big blowout against Hawaii. It was just it was a great season. It was, you couldn't have asked for a better season. Just for a program, for me personally, and I'll share more as we get into the senior year, but that season was so fundamentally sound for me in the perspective of never getting too far, over my toes, in essence, meaning never thinking, too big of a picture, really focusing on the here, the now. And we just continue to do that play by play, the play within the play. What do you do while you're, calling the play and prepping the team and doing, it was so detail oriented and be here now. I don't know if I think that was one of the years that was kind of our motto, the be here now, but that might've been 04. But it's what it was. It was very simplistic. And I think our game plans, for as elaborate as they seemed, coaches did a good job of making them pretty simple for me. And it's just great coaching leadership too. Like I came in there, I never looked at game film of football before I stepped on campus. Coach, I didn't know what to look at, right? So they had to teach me basically like this Gumby, this raw piece of clay. And I think Coach Pete is probably one of the best of all time at that. So
no doubt on that statement. When did you become aware and raise your level of consciousness to figure out that there really is no opponent? The real opponent is Z against Z. When did you realize that and start thinking that way, Z?
You know what? And I had kind of a thought the other day that was, for me, understanding that I want to outdo what I've previously done and consistently, pursue excellence, which has kind of been a staple for me and a life motto, really since, and the understanding of which since college. But for me, my trigger and the thing that really propels me is finding something or someone to compete with. And that something may not be another person, and it might be internally driven, but grabbing that and focusing on outperforming or outdoing that, that's when I'm at my best. And a lot of times I'm able to take a person and plug them into a role that may not be where they currently sit, but trying to compete against that person or that, I guess, thing to outperform it.
Right. And then your senior year, the year prior, Dan Hawkins is during your junior year. Dan Hawkins is the head football coach. Chris Peterson becomes the head football coach now your senior year. We got some fellas, right? Remember when we used to have Jerry and who else was the wide? Gilligan. Do you remember when we had those guys? It's like the three white boys that were 5'10" and under, and we go out and smash teams. And then your senior year, there's LA running out there, right? Name all those guys. And then how did that whole change? Because like you said, hey, hard work will give you an opportunity all the time. But then we got some fellas, right?
Yeah.
How did that feel like in terms of the talent and the skill level upping?
Oh man, so that was the freshman class that I came in with. And that, the coaching staff did a great job of recruiting those guys. But you're right. We went from winning, pretty high profile football games with a group of guys that were big time overachievers to actually putting a squad out there with three Gerard Rabb, Bryson James, and Leigh Dudani, three NFL type receivers,
Crazy,
and
right?
And an NFL tight end in Derek Schumann, and an NFL fullback in Richie Brockle.
Richie
and
Brock.
an
I mean,
NFL,
you had NFL left tackle Ryan Clady, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it just was nuts.
Yeah, from that team, Bill, our top probably 24 guys, I think there were like 15 or 16 of us that went on to the NFL.
Right.
And a lot of guys had extended careers. I mean, we had 2 first rounders on that team. We had a D tackle. Remember Dennis Ellis, probably the most talented
Dennis
guy.
Ellis could have played in the league, but just Dennis Ellis wasn't ready. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right?
So we had guys all over the field. Corey Hall, Super Bowl winner, left tackle, could have been, minus the knee injury. Clady could have went down as one of the greatest left tackles ever to play the game.
No doubt.
We had guys everywhere. And
no doubt.
The thing, it was great. I mean, there wasn't a matchup that I was like, oh man, like there's no way I'm going to be able to throw to that side of the field, or there's no way we can do what we want. And that's why we were so great on offense. We can literally do whatever we wanted, and whatever the strength of that defense was, we could do something else if we needed to stay away from that. We were not a one-trick pony by any means. We could throw the ball, we could spread you out, we could run it down your throat, and our play action was as good as anybody's. So we did what we wanted, and what we wanted to do was run first, set a tempo up front, and if you couldn't stop the run, we were just going to run, play action for bombs to death. We did that. We did that with some great talent. It was a lot of fun, and in the transition, Coach V, from that junior kind of slump in which we still won a conference championship.
That's right. But it didn't end right? It just didn't.
The year didn't.
It didn't start right or end right. Because Georgia was on the front end of that, right?
Yeah, that was my worst game athletically, and there were so many things that went into that. We didn't prepare the right way. We didn't perform the right way. And that just kind of lingered through the season. I mean, we beat teams, but it was just like, there was never a game where you're like, for me anyways, it was like, man, okay, I'm like back in step. Like, okay, I feel right. There was just something that was always missing.
Right. And then now, we're running short on time here. Man, we could do a 2-hour show with you, but let's take 30 seconds. What did it feel like to really overcome all of those challenges, to going 14-0? I think 13. It was your senior year. 13, I mean, we won so many games, and people go, "Oh yeah, you're just bragging." I was like, man, there was one time we were like 33 games in a row. We haven't lost a game in like 30 something. Remember that time? I went from a GA, it was like Hawks, like second to last year or something. Like we went 30 something games straight, Z. So like winning, I mean, that's just what we do. But during that time, for you to overcome all that and then win the Fiesta Bowl in the fashion that we did, starting fast, but then having to finish strong. Right, Z?
Yeah.
How did that feel?
Yeah,
like take a minute and unpack that.
Yeah, I mean that motto, start fast, finish strong, that spoke volumes into our season. It really did.
No doubt.
I mean, we started fast with, I think I played for 2.5 quarters. The starters played for 2.5 quarters against Sac State, and we won 56 to a nugget. I don't know if they scored.
I don't remember, but I knew it was a pretty big game. Like we really did come out fast and go.
And that's kind of the season. And then we faced some different adversities during the season. If you remember, we played against San Jose in an early game.
State, and then Marty had to bring back a ball. on the punt return.
Yeah, well, Ian Johnson ends up getting a punctured lung.
Yep.
I had chicken pox. I couldn't even do the walkthrough the day before, if you remember.
Right.
I mean, it was there were so many things that, built up against us. And that's, I've heard you say this and the coaches say this, and it's definitely true. When you're the champ, you got a target on your back and you're going to get everybody's best. So we consistently had to understand that, be aware of that, but also know that, if we took care of our business, we had enough confidence and enough gamesmanship and enough ability to game plan and execute that we were confident that we were going to win. So that season for me was going back to simplicity. That's what I'd forgotten about going into the junior season. I got a little bit out over my skis, as they say, and a little bit out in front, and started looking at the different pictures and not focused on the details, and simplifying. And those details, I talked to our youth teams that my son plays on, that I get the opportunity and the blessing to coach. And these are like little 8-year-olds, but understanding that those small details, whether it's, standing behind the line, or keeping your eyes up when you're running, or not crossing your foot over when you're shuffling, working those details and understanding that those details, as small as they may be in that moment, that those are going to be the key differences that are going to win you the game when it's on the line.
Yeah, no doubt. What is the Jared Zabransky? Take a minute, because we're really running out on time here. 1 minute, Z. What is your message to the world? What's Jared Zabransky's message to the world?
I think it has to do a lot with adversity and understanding that through perseverance and a work ethic, you can overcome your adversities, and that you should not be afraid of failure, because failure exists and failure is going to happen to everybody. As long as you fail, and when you fail forward, meaning you're learning from your failures and your mistakes, and you push forward with those learnings, with hope and God as your leader, you can achieve anything.
And what would you like to promote? How can people that are watching this that go, I need to hire Z to come talk about competition, overcoming adversity? So what would you like to promote that you're doing currently, and how can people get a hold of you, Z?
Currently we are working on a couple of different projects, passion projects. You mentioned earlier the philanthropic side of things. We have this Make-A-Wish tournament coming up that we're in our 10th year of. I really want to, if people are looking for something to support, they're looking for an avenue to support something, we'd love to talk about having you support the Wishes Golf Tournament and Make-A-Wish organization. All the proceeds go to Make-A-Wish. And then on the athletic development side, me and some partners have partnered in D1 training, and that's in Meridian, Idaho. And we've got a couple others that are operating around the country. We got one in Sparks, Nevada, and we got a couple coming soon. So it's just a passion project that allows me to stay involved in athletic development. It's definitely the place for the athlete. We got some great clients in Meridian and Sparks both. Just want to thank them if they're watching this, and also encourage anyone, if they're looking for a place to train themselves or a place for their kids to increase their athletic performance. You can get a hold of me via Facebook, Jared Zabransky, Instagram, JZBSU5, and or my name, obviously. I'd love to talk more about both of those.
Awesome. And your final shout outs, 1 minute. Who would you like to shout out?
Shout out, you've already given her a shout out, but my producer and right-hand woman, Vanessa Ferguson, my fiance.
Nice.
Shout out to Savannah and Rowan, Zabransky, my children, and my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Thank you, Z. Z, let's, when the studio opens up, we're waiting to see when the studio opens up, and you and Vanessa and the kids are in Disneyland. Could you guys take an hour and stop by the studio and we could shoot another show?
Absolutely. So we're planning a trip tentatively in October, Coach V. So
yeah, I'll book a ticket. I'll fly from up here in the 916 down there, and then we'll just continue this journey and maybe do an update on where you're speaking and also your athletic development training complexes and the training facilities it is that you run where you are at that time. But I do want to thank you, Z. I know you're a busy executive with all that you got going on. Thank you to our production manager down there outside of Houston, Vanessa Ferguson, for helping with the production services over there. Thank you to my man, Z. Shout out to both Steve and Tana Zabransky. Shout out to Hermiston, Oregon. Shout out Boise State. Thank you so much for everybody for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, check me out on my YouTube channel and please subscribe. Thank you to Island City, who powers, produces, and does all the technicalities to make sure that the Coach V show runs. And know this, it's just not for the reason for success that we develop and work to be our best, but the sake of being our best. In doing so, we realize the best of our abilities and that everything and anything, like Z says, that we dream and work for can be achieved. This is how this success coach, keynote speaker, author, and Hollywood radio show host lives, all about faith and family. Grateful for God's amazing grace. From your boy, Jared Zabransky, and your boy, Billy Amitafokta from right here in Hollywood, California, broadcast from the Dash Radio Studios, powered by Island City. Until next Modern Motivation Monday, is your boy Z, Coach V. Till next time, peace.
Thanks, Coach V.